Hello, and you are back in the Velvet Room with Jokerthefool. This is our 88th episode, and today we'll be discussing Trump convicted, Cracker Barrel is everything wrong with corporate America, and brain computers. So, I'm going to get right into this with the leading story. This came off very recently, recording this on Thursday evening in New York. And in New York, Trump was convicted on all 34 counts of the hush money trial. So he's the first former president to be criminally convicted. Now, of course, this was all, for lack of a better term, a trumped up trial, completely rigged. They had, everyone who was a part of this case had it absolutely out for Trump. So it's not a surprise that he got this guilty verdict. He's going to be sentenced on the 11th. And I really didn't talk about the election, or not the election, this trial too much. I just said it was a distraction from other things. I still stand by that. But really, what I don't like about Trump being found guilty is the fact of the matter that he is just going to enable the massive hate boner that exists in this culture for Trump, the Trump derangement syndrome, like the people who just demand that he gets locked up. Is he actually going to be in prison? I doubt that. We'll see what happens with the sentencing on July 11th. I think they're going to try and hype it up as much as possible. Paint him as being this felonious criminal who, laundered money and did all this stuff wrong, yada, 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 because they absolutely have it out for this man. Do not want him to have any meaningful sort of power, and, that goes along with his base, because the base of Trump voters are everything that's wrong with America. This basket of deplorables that Hillary Clinton was talking about in 2016. Really, when they get Trump, they're going to go for those people next, and those people are really the last people to want this country to be free meaningfully. And Trump's base is really the last, I would say, holdout of people who can actually bring that in with the current representative democracy that we have. Not that I believe the current state federal government is capable of doing that, but in the current system that we have, Trump's got that base. He has been able to rally enough support where that's basically, I would say, the last stand of people who are somewhat freedom-minded and have the political capital to get someone into the White House and actually enact stuff that is not completely uniparty authoritarian nonsense. And of course, if they can get rid of Trump, then they can get rid of that base, and the uniparty agenda can go forward as planned. And I think this is really all part of the plan. Now, is Trump going to spend a day in prison? I don't know. Is this going to get appealed to a higher court? Who knows? There's a whole bunch of stuff that can go on between now and July. It's about a month and a half or so between this verdict being delivered and the sentencing. But really, the whole thing is just going to polarize people even more. The Trump supporters are going to go harder in the support for him. Of course, the people with TDS are just going to have this massive hate boner. Just going to be even more so of a thing. Just like bragging and thinking this is some sort of like epic moral victory, like we're regaining this country. So it's just going to be completely obnoxious from those people, right? The Trump supporters, they can be a bit obnoxious, they can be a bit over the top with things, but the absolute obnoxiousness, the Karen like behavior from the people with TDS, it's going to get dialed up by like 10 times over this, and it's just going to be infuriating to have to sit by and listen to this complete garbage coming from these people because Trump got convicted. And that's the thing that really pisses me off. It's not like that, like I care about Trump or I want him to be like not in prison or anything like that. It's just, this is going to further polarize the culture. It's going to get people more pissed off at each other, and it's going to make 2024 the election even more interesting than it was already going to be. But we'll see what happens in the future. If anything really big happens with this, I'll of course cover it. But I do think most of this is a distraction, and we're going to get into that with the last topic. But we're going to move on into the second topic. I've got this article here from USA Today. Cracker Barrel stock plummets after CEO says chain isn't as relevant, must revitalize. So you've got the Cracker Barrel CEO is Julie Fells-Messino, who became Cracker Barrel CEO 9 months ago, told the investors during the May 16th call that was not that the eatery Cracker Barrel wasn't delivering the financial results the shareholders deserve. It's a great concept and a great company, but to ignite growth, we must revitalize the brand. right? And it's just like generic corporate speak. I looked at her LinkedIn, and it was, she was working at Taco Bell. This is someone who gamed the corporate system, was able to climb the corporate ladder, got into the Cracker Barrel position, and someone who does not care about running Cracker Barrel as a good business that serves good food to people. This isn't like your local mom and pop shop doing something like Cracker Barrel does. This is a chain where you're making as much money as possible. It's not like, well, I have these regulars, and this is why the menu is like this, because this is what the regulars like, this is what the people like. It's like you have everything on a spreadsheet. You compare what makes the most amount of money and what doesn't, and you just axe those items and tell them to make new ones. It's really just looking at numbers, looking at a spreadsheet, and saying whatever the hell you think you can say to make the investors happy. Of course, the investors weren't happy with this. The stock went down 20% to about 48% a share. Stock closed Thursday, last Thursday, to $45.75 a share, if you wanted to know those numbers. But anyway, this is really just emblematic of what corporate America gets so wrong, is that this is really about spreadsheets and numbers and looking good for the investors rather than providing a good service for your local community, right? And that's what the mom and pop shops do really well, is that they have their niche, they have their local community, they serve them, and they build a good business on top of that. And the ones that did really well are the ones that became these massive conglomerates, right? You have, something like Cracker Barrel, where you do this, like, gift shop and Southern soul food. Well, I'm not sure soul food, but, classic Southern food. And then it gets big in one location. You open up more, and then it becomes this big, massive corporation that becomes publicly traded. And of course, you have all the corpos and the upper management doing all this sort of stuff. So the degree of separation between the people who make these decisions and what the actual chains have to execute on, like the layout of the store. Because if you don't know what Cracker Barrel is, it's a gift shop with a restaurant attached, and it's all Southern themed. And I've been to Cracker Barrel. Of course, they've gone woke long time ago, and I don't go to restaurants anymore, but they're usually on the side of highways. So if you're road tripping throughout a lot of America, Cracker Barrel is a place that people stop. And of course, you got all the stuff you can buy at gift shops. So if you're driving through states, and you can buy stuff that's geared towards, that stay, souvenirs, and of course you can get stuff for your kids. So it's supposed to be, this good, wholesome family environment, which is why when, a place like that goes woke, people respond in droves. But it's also just, a restaurant has good food, it's good atmosphere. Typically, they build them off highways, and they don't rent buildings out. They build the buildings themselves, so they have this specific layout. So it has this specific atmosphere and feel, and that's why Cracker Barrel is this brand to people, because you go into a Cracker Barrel and you know the experience you're going to have, right? And that's what part of a brand for something like Cracker Barrel is, and I think that has the appeal. It's just that it needs to be ran by people who actually care about the local community and being a good restaurateur and providing good products to people, not someone like Julie Fells Messino, who came in 9 months ago from another upper management position, who just wants to get the shareholders off her back, who just wants to get the board of investors to nod and keep her on, right? This is really what she cares about. She doesn't care about the customer. She doesn't care about the communities that the Cracker Barrels are in. She just cares about the stock options. She cares about the board being happy. She cares about the investors being happy. And that's really what the issue with corporate America is. It's more about making the numbers look good on a spreadsheet. It's more about making sure your NASDAQ ticker shows green instead of red. All right, that's really what it is about with corporate America, and that's the mindset that trickles out all throughout the country. That's why a lot of these employees work at Walmart, Cracker Barrel, any of these big companies. They absolutely hate working there. I worked for Amazon, absolutely hated it, because it's really not about treating you well or with dignity. It's about maximizing profit. It's about making sure there's as much revenue as possible. It's making the shareholders, the investors, the board of directors happy with you, so you keep your position in upper management. And the people in upper management are the ones who are making decisions that trickle all the way down the chain, and they do not have the interests of the average person in mind. They do not have the interest in actually doing what works. They want to do what's perceived to work, and they're constantly pursuing growth, right? Because that's what investors care about, is that your business grows year over year. If you make $1 billion 1 year, and then the next year you say, we made $1 billion, investors will say, well, that's no growth. Your business is failing. We're selling the stock, and then the stock goes down. That's bad news bears. And the mindset of constant growth is why you have all this debt and investing in stupid things. And of course, you got the ESG woke nonsense added on top of that, makes it even worse. But that's really my whole spiel with corporate America. This is just irrelevant. This is just a very relevant thing. Having a CEO who came in 9 months ago who says that, it's a great concept, great company. We got to revitalize it. We got to make it better. Right? We got to ask menu items to try and find what works, right? Someone doesn't really have any sort of direction, doesn't have like this meaningful experience, doesn't isn't there every day, knows the people, has regulars. And again, it's hard to do that with a chain of Cracker Barrels where there's like 800 something stores or something like that. You can't go to every single one and know every single person who goes there on a regular basis, of course. But there's no investment that you have when like a small business owner does with the business. It's really just about doing what you need to do to keep your position in upper management. And that's the reason why corporate America is floundering and failing and will continue to do so. But we're going to get into the really big topic. If you're still with me, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that fantastic stuff. If you want to do that, of course. But this is a massive one. So I've got a study that I will link below. I won't get into it. It's very technical. But we've got this article from Tom's Hardware. World's first bioprocessor uses 16 human brain organoids for 1 million times less power consumption than a digital chip. So this Swiss startup is called Neuroplatform. It's a first for biocomputing. And this is an actual platform. If you're an educator, you can pay $500 for it's a shared platform, one user, and you've already got from 3 dozen universities interested. You've got a bunch that have signed up already, so you've got this idea of organoids. So you're culturing brain cells and having them able to culture these brain cells from stem cells. Stem cells come in utero. So I'm going to, just let you connect the dots where they get those from. And then you take these stem cells, turn them into neurons, culture those neurons until they can produce electrical signals, and then you basically wire that to, you wire that to a controller, and then that controller can link to a database where you can do all these sorts of calculations. These multi-electrode arrays housing living organoids. These are 3D cell masses of brain tissue. So you're using brain tissue to run these calculations, and then of course you can send and receive the electrical signals because your brain or any brain runs on electrical signals, right? So you have all these electrical signals going on, so you can have this pretty easy interaction, and this is something that's already happening. So it's been talked about for a year, and of course, aside from where are you getting the stem cells, this human sourcing, there's a lot of moral implications with this. So this study is I'm going to get to the title here. Complex oscillatory waves emerging from cortical organoids model early human brain network development. Now, it's not quite as complicated as an actual human brain would be, but you find that these organoids have the beginning mimicking of what's found in early human development, right? So the idea is that if you can culture this long enough, if you can have these organoids survive long enough and you have them develop completely, and you have a brain in a jar, it would become very likely that this brain that you have, hooked up to a database or a server farm to run these calculations would become sentient, and then you've essentially made a human brain that's sentient connected to a computer, and you're basically enslaving it. That's a whole moral implication there, why we shouldn't do this. And of course you got stuff like quantum computing, molecular computing using DNA to store and process information would have much less of a moral implication, of course, investing into like superconductors and making that something where we can actually have superconductors that can, be feasible to use would be a much better thing to do. So if you want to have this next advancement in computing from the current semiconductor system, right? You have these silicon semiconductors where you have these billions of transistors that are made from copper, cut from silicon, and they produce a lot of heat. They're not nearly as efficient. They're hard to produce in large quantities because they're so small. You have all these errors, so there's a lot of stuff that has to get binned. So there's a lot of issues with our modern semiconductor technology, and of course, we're trying to resolve that, have this next big advancement in computing, and quantum computing, which I've talked about before. The fact that you have these qubits which can exist in multiple states, whereas binary just has two, on and off, has a lot more promise for complex computations. It's just that it's just not there yet, and I definitely don't think these brain computers are going to be there yet, because you've got the fact that this is organic living tissue, so it needs to be oxygenated, it needs nutrients. So to provide that, while yes, your brain uses only 20 watts of energy, so to do the computations themselves would require a lot less electrical energy. But the resources that you would need to culture and maintain an organoid data farm, because you've got cloud computing, you've got data centers. That's a really big thing in tech. That's where a lot of stuff is going. A lot of money is there. So to have like the next advancement in data centers where they're much more efficient and can do more calculations is a very appealing thing. But I doubt an organoid server farm or cloud computing center or data center would be less resource intensive if you factor in all the the HVAC and the climate control you have to do for these organoids, because they have to be at the temperature that the human body's at if you're using human brain cells, which they seem to want to do for whatever reason. And then you've got all the nutrients you're going to need, all these sorts of things. So is it going to be less resource intensive, more resource intensive, about the same? I really doubt it is. And then of course, again, you got all these moral implications of, well, if you culture a large enough network of organoids, really. So it's not necessarily they're going to make an entire brain. I don't think they're going to do that, because that'll be has a lot of implications. It's just taking specific cells and specific tissue and just wiring those together to produce that. Again, if you do enough of those, it could become a sentient human, essentially, and that's very concerning. And of course, you could have someone who goes, well, let's just do the brain, like a whole brain, and see if we can actually do it and see what happens, right? You get sucked into with the the scientific thing of like, if we can do it, then we're going to do it, and then we're going to see what happens, rather than asking, should we do this? And I definitely don't think this should be done. I think this is an extremely unethical thing to do, to use organoids, like especially human organoids, using like brain tissue from rats or mice or other animals. That's another thing. I still think that the fact that you have to oxygenate and provide these organoids with nutrients is going to be a thing that makes it a bit unfeasible. And of course, you've got the whole ethical issues with using human brain organoids as well, that which they want to go for. But just playing God like this is not going to end well. And I doubt they aren't going to stop doing this. They're going to keep pushing and pushing, and then it's going to be too late, and then we'll see what happens next. I don't think this is going to be pretty, but this is something I wanted to bring to your attention. This is definitely something you should be focused on, the fact that they're making brain computers now, rather than if Trump is being found guilty or not. But I'm going on for about 20 minutes here. I think I've left this long enough. This has been all over the place, but this news I just found out about this brain organoids is absolutely insane where technology is going, and it's not always a good thing. But hopefully you guys found this one interesting, and we're heading into the outro now. Thank you for being in the Velvet Room with Joker the Fool. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, whether you're listening on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, or Substack, and be sure to subscribe to my Substack, velvetroompublishing.substack.com, to keep up with Machine to Man and all my other projects.